It's a great opportunity. We are going to dive into the spiritual side of us, how to improve, how to jump forward, and how to use that, especially during this hard time. Alec, could you please introduce yourself and what do you do for business?
Yeah, for sure. Like Nour said, my name is Alec Ashby. I'm a spiritual coach out here located in the Fairfax, Virginia area. And essentially what I help people do, I primarily focus on helping young men grow spiritually and find a level of inner peace and ultimately do that to create a fulfilling life. And I've been in business for about 3 months now, and I'm really excited to see where I grow.
That is awesome. So my first question is how to find purpose in life, especially like if some people feel lost.
Yeah, for sure. So, I talk a lot about this on my YouTube channel, life purpose, purpose, passion, living through passion and purpose. But I think the first thing you have to do when you talk about life purpose or just purpose in general is just live every day with a purpose. So if you're doing a job right now and you don't love the job or you don't love the company, start having the purpose. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Your purpose could be, I do my job at the highest level possible. Or your purpose could be, spread love. I spread, goodwill to people. And when you set the intention to the universe or you set the intention to the cosmos that I'm going to live a life with purpose, you'll find that things will just start coming to you. And I disagree with a lot of, spiritual teachers, and some of them say, you have a soul mission, a soul purpose. I believe in this life you have multiple purposes, and it's about, working through them and always living through purpose or living a life of purpose. That's always a big first step, is setting the intention. It's like for me, I always knew I wanted to start a spiritual retreat center. I always knew I wanted to start a meditation center, but there's practical steps. Life purpose, it can get mystical at times. It can feel like very divine and that like, oh, this is all coming to me. But sometimes you have to take very practical steps. So for me, I'm taking very practical steps in getting my business up and running. That might be practical steps in learning like, sales skills or marketing. But ultimately, I will reach my higher purpose, but there's practical steps. So I say if you're feeling lost, the first thing you should do is just definitely live out of purpose and set the intention and, experiment with things. Do I like this? Do I like that? Especially if you're in your 20s. Your 20s is a time of experimentation, and don't get too any attached to any one outcome because you might be blinding yourself from opportunity that's in the present moment. So that's kind of my advice to someone that would feel kind of lost and they feel like they need purpose in their life.
That is awesome. So my question is for young people, like, do you recommend like just moving out of the house or staying in the house while going to college? What do you think?
Yeah, so while you're in school, I think that's kind of up to you. For me personally, I went to community college for 2 years, lived at home. I saved a lot of money. I did not take any money out to go to this school. I also wasn't paying anything in rent, and my employer was feeding me at the time, which was very nice. And then when I went to university, I spent 1 year in the dorm and 1 year in the apartment. I think while you're, in university, that's kind of based on the individual. I know for me, a lot of people wouldn't be willing to make the sacrifices I was willing to make. A lot of people wouldn't live at home for 2 more years. A lot of people, wouldn't take the sacrifices I took. So if you do want to live like, move out at 18, I just advise, especially if you're in high school or undergrad, do the best you can in school. Get as many scholarships as you can and be as resource use as many resources as you can. That way you don't accumulate a bunch of student debt. Now, when you do graduate college, I do recommend just moving out as quickly as possible. For me, I kind of hesitated on this, especially what's going on in the world right now. But the best decision I made, I live here in the United States, so I moved away from my home state, and I also moved to a very expensive area. And right now, I still have a sales career, so it forced me to get really good at sales quickly, and it also forced me to grow up. And I noticed that a lot of financial advisors or a lot of people in the financial planning, communities are always like live at home for 1 more year, do all this. That can be great. Now, if you have a lot of student debt, do what you have to do. But I just found for me personally in my journey, I find the experience of having to grow up quick, having to take responsibility will ultimately heighten your skill set at whatever you're doing. And when your skill set gets elevated, you'll start attracting new opportunities and ultimately your income will go up. So I really recommend, once you graduate, just move out as quickly as possible. Obviously, don't rush it, have a roommate. I'm not saying go move into like the nicest apartment on the town, but I do think once you graduate university, you should move out. But during university, it's kind of up to the individual. I would just say work as hard as you can and use as many resources as you can.
And what about starting a business? Like some people like this idea of being an entrepreneur as early as possible. What do you think?
For sure. So I think any entrepreneur, if that speaks to you, if you want to be an entrepreneur, I would say immediately pursue a sales career because not only will that help you build capital for whatever you're doing, it'll also teach you how to have personal responsibility because sales, you have a bad week, the numbers show you in the face. You have a good week, numbers show in the face. And sales really prepares you to have that even killed mindset where you don't get too high on yourself and you don't get too low on yourself. You just steadily improve your sales funnel. And ultimately, every entrepreneur, every business owner, ultimately, the reason they succeed is they can sell at a high level. Sales is all, that's why if you don't want to be an entrepreneur, but you want to live a more financially abundant life, sales is usually the second best thing you can do. And it's like even here on this, podcast, you had to sell me, even though, I wanted to come on and I was excited to come on. At the end of the day, when you reach out to people, you're selling people on your platform, your podcast, and everything at the end of the day is a sale. So that's the first thing I'd really recommend a sales career. If sales isn't for you, marketing, some kind of business thing where you're going to see, how to run a business. I know for me, I was working here for like the first 5 months of my career, as an adult after my internship with a startup. So I saw, the recruiting side of the business. I saw the sales side of the business. I saw the administrative side of the business. I saw all the sides of the business. So that gave me practice before I had my own ownership in a business. Now, as far as, starting a business, as far as like my advice on someone that's starting a business, first off, just start. Whenever you're ready to start, just start. You're not going to be perfect. I know for me, there's still a lot of things I need to improve in my business. But just starting is the best thing to do. So just start. Don't overthink it. Just start. And I would say the first business I would recommend building is an online business. It's not as high of risk. You still learn about the customer journey. You still learn that the business at the end of the day is all about the customer or the client. You still learn all the content marketing, all the marketing, but you don't have all the financial risk. So, developing a business that I really recommend to anyone trying to start as their first business, that is what I'm doing myself, is a coaching business. Find something you're really passionate about, something you have expertise, knowledge on, something where you can facilitate change in a small group of clients. And it's a really simple business model. It's not too complicated. You have to do content marketing. You have to know how to onboard a client. There's simple things you have to do, but it's not too overwhelming. So then when you build that business, then you can get more into like, physical real estate. Like if you wanted to start a shop or if you want to start, like for me, it's a meditation studio. But I think just starting one business, like an e-commerce business or an internet-based business that doesn't have as much initial upfront capital cost is really good because you're still learning all the skills and you're still, learning everything you need to learn, but you're not taking on that huge financial risk. And I think that's something anyone can start really at any age, to be honest with
you. Relating to starting a business, like how do you define success?
you. Yeah. This is something for me that's changed a lot over the years. Even though I'm very into spirituality, and some people have told me lately that I'm pretty mature, which I think is kind of funny because I used to be the class clown, just like a lot of entrepreneurs. Um, the thing about it is it changes over time. Initially for me, it was how fast can I get financially free and how fast can I quit my job. But recently, what I found about success, especially when you get more in the business owner paradigm, it's just how much value can I provide to society and do I like what I'm doing every day? Because when you get deeper on the entrepreneurial journey, or you get deeper on your financial education, or you really figure out how to navigate the world and really start educating yourself, you realize that making money really isn't that difficult. And then money, it just kind of becomes a thing, like, it's good. It's like it's a for me, the way I've always associated money is it's just a vehicle for freedom and a vehicle for value. That's kind of how I psychologically perceive money. And recently, with me, starting my own business and realizing, how consistent you have to be, how you have to create something that's valuable for the market. I just find success for me now is just, am I providing something valuable to society? And could I look back on my life and be like, I added value, I made the world a better place? It's really that simple for me now. It used to be for me, like typical young entrepreneurs, like I had to hit this income goal or I had to have this materialistic item. And there's no shame in, pursuing those kind of things. But ultimately, what's going to help you become successful is when you focus on value and you focus on just making the world a better place. And just that feeling of, in sales, when you facilitate a sale and you actually, improve someone's life or improve someone's situation, that's way more fulfilling than racking up commissions or racking up sales in your business, whatever it might be. And that's kind of where I'm at right now with defining success, but it's always changing.
And what do you think about changing careers? Like, especially some people spend some time in a certain job and they want to change. How do you see that?
For sure. So I think it's really important in any point in life to always try to see things at the highest perspective. So for me, I had a spiritual awakening back in 2019. And I had a lot of paradigm shifts, a lot of like, I started to view the world differently, and I started to really fall in love with meditation. And I remember that summer, it was like the summer of my junior year of college. I was thinking about dropping out. I'm like, I don't want to be a marketing major. I don't want to be in sales. I don't want to do business. I just want to, go meditate in the mountains, right? um, but what I realized is that if you're trying to switch a career, probably the skills you're building in that career right now, you can use in your next career. So for me, I'm still, I still have a day job. I still do sales, I still am doing business. But at the end of the day, if you do want to do what you love and you want to do it in an organized fashion where you're not stressing out, where you have consistent revenue coming in, and more importantly, you're making a difference, you do have to conduct business. So I'm just speaking from personal experience. I learned to love sales and I learned to love marketing. And I also learned how to frame it in a way like, yeah, this isn't my like life purpose. I don't want to be a salesman for the rest of my life, but learning these things will help me, create that meditation studio, or learning these things will help me create that spiritual retreat center or become a public speaker. Like all these things are all kind of connected. So I'd say if someone's looking to like switch careers and they're looking to, let's say they're in hospitality, but they want to work in parks and recreation. Well, learning how to take care of people, in a hotel or something like that, it's kind of similar when you work at a camp and you're having people come in and there's a program, that hospitality. So I would just say try to see how where you're at right now connects to where you're trying to go and just improve on those skills at the max level. Because I know for me, when I started this other business, I struggled to focus on my day job and my sales. But it wasn't until I embraced, everything I was doing, embrace sales, becoming the greatest salesman I can become, but also become the best content creator I can become, the best public speaker. And when you start connecting things instead of separating things, you'll find that opportunities will just flow to you, and always prepare for them to come. So I would just say, I've been there, I totally get it, but just try to maintain a positive attitude and also understand that there's sacrifice that goes into that. If you're trying to make a career transition and you're spending 8 hours a day, doing whatever you're doing, that other 5 to 4 hours a day you need to invest in whatever career shift you're trying to make. And also I always recommend this as well, go on LinkedIn and network. There's so many great people out there, they'll just network with you for free. Network with people in your industry that you're trying to grow with, because for me, I've been just networking this past 2 months with like life coaches, really just any coach, not spirituality specifically. And really just doing that has helped me, elevate myself. So that's I know that was a lot of advice right there, but that's just kind of what I would say.
Perfect. And how to balance between like business purposes and life in general?
Yeah, great question, Nour. Back in my old industry, back when I was intern in Raleigh working for a direct marketing company, um, one of I one of the I guess how would I put this? One of the leaders within the company, her name is Sam Smith. She had a very impactful speech. Now it was still COVID, so it was on Zoom, so it wasn't like she was saying it in front of people. But I remember Sam said something along the lines of, when I started looking at everything in my life as just life and stopped separating things, that's when things started to work for me. So if it kind of goes back to the point I just said, if you look at your business and your personal life as separate, then it kind of creates this unnecessary separation. But when you kind of embody your business, like for me, when I embody everything I'm doing and I just see it as myself, I take it as part of me. I find that it just kind of works. I don't even know how to describe it. It just like when I'm like, you know, a big part of becoming a successful person is when you're working, you work. When you're cooking, you cook. It sounds so simple, but a lot of people don't do what they're actually doing. They might be working, but their mind might be on the kids or the wife. And they might be cooking, but their mind might be on the TV show they're going to watch later. When you kind of have this very like root chakra, very like grounded, like I'm just going to do what I'm actually doing, you feel balanced. Now, like I said earlier, you might have to make the sacrifices to get where you want to go. But like even me now, I'm like doing a side hustle. I'm running content marketing. I'm trying to get clients. I have a day job. I'm I got another side hustle I'm doing. But the fact that I just stay present with everything I'm doing, even though I am making sacrifices in my romantic life or relaxing time, I still feel like I'm just living life because I'm not making those separations. I'm just focused on what I'm actually doing. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's kind of how I see it.
It is awesome. So my next question is, what habits exactly affected your success or your life journey?
Yeah, for sure. So, my number one habit that's changed my life has been meditation. I meditate for an hour every single day. Now, obviously, this is my career, so I mean, I will probably meditate more than like the average Joe. I'm not saying you have to meditate an hour. I think actually 15 minutes could be enough. I don't really believe that the amount of time you meditate really matters. It's just the quality of your meditation. And this has changed my life because it not only rewires your neurological pathways and helps you think in a more enlightened, positive fashion, but it really helps you take a step back. And I found that when I started meditating, I started experiencing more gratitude, more peace. I also started to believe in myself more. I had a lot more willpower. And ultimately, all these things that I never noticed before, that I didn't appreciate, or opportunities I couldn't see, it's that my perception started expanding. And Steve Jobs talked about this, RIP Steve Jobs, where he talked about when you live in the moment, it becomes very vast and like open. And what meditation has essentially done for me is it's given me mental strength, it's given me peace of mind. And I've had a lot of mental health issues in my life. I've tried the prescription drug route. I've tried, therapy, I've tried all these things. And I'm not saying those things don't work. And I'm not putting those things down. But I just found for me, in my experience, that meditation has brought me the most peace. It's made me a better man. It's made me a better person. It's made me more effective at what I do. It's helped me focus more. And it's really opened a lot of doors, and it's made me question my own thought patterns, really just question reality as a whole. And it all started off for me with one meditation at a university. And I personally think that's the most important habit. If I were to say anyone do this habit every single day, I'd say meditate for 20 minutes every single day.
That is awesome. So my next question is, how did spirituality affect your vision of life and the career?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a deep question. So what was the first part of that question? Just one more time.
Yeah, I mean, how did spirituality change your thinking? How do you vision career? How do you see life? You know?
Yeah, for sure. So, I might seem, like I have a lot of knowledge now, or like people that know me closely know I've really changed over my journey. But really, starting off, I was a very unconscious individual. I was still suffering from Tourette syndrome and anxiety, and I was very unconscious. I wasn't very mindful. I didn't really question things like what is a thought, what is an ego, I didn't understand these things. And really, as I've become more and more, I guess one way to put it is enlightened or at peace. I found that I've realized I'm in control of my situation a lot more than I think I am. Now I'm not Zeus, and I'm not gonna, I can't just walk out here and start a $1 million company like out of nowhere. Um, but what I found is that I can control the way I think. I can control what I focus on. I can control my habits. I can control what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. And really, meditation has empowered me. I'm very empathic. So from a young age, I'd pick up on like a lot of like fear-based energy. And I think I kind of internalized that. But really, like for me on my journey, what meditation has done is really helped me experience my personal power and kind of at the same time, though, let go of that ego and just more of see the world and see, everyone is just a part of me. That's what kind of spiritual enlightenment is that I see every problem now in the world. I don't, distance myself from it. And I'm not saying I can solve every problem. Obviously, I just pick my set list of problems and I try to solve those. And then if I solve those, then maybe I'll solve some more problems. But really, as a career lens, it's I became a lot more selfless. I used to make all these excuses like, oh, when I get my savings to this amount, or when my investments get to this amount, or when this company gets to this amount, then I'll do charity. Then I'll do this. But really, just I've just become a lot more selfless, and I've seen the value of living selflessly. Now, I'm not a selfish guy, but being an entrepreneur and being in sales, it is very tempting sometimes to see how far you can push yourself and get kind of stuck in that ego loop. And it's fine. It's just part of the journey. But really, it's helped me live my business and my career from a more selfless lens, and just kind of heal my problems. And when I heal myself, I just want to heal others. So that's kind of what happened with me.
So another question here, like throughout the journey, of course, there has been some judgment, some vulnerability, some moments where you felt uncomfortable.
Mhm.
How did you cope with that? How did that affect you?
For sure, I'll say just to be 1,000% transparent, I haven't always coped with it in the best way. And I think learning, I personally think that every human being should get to a level where they don't need to cope, where they can allow the negative emotions to flow, whether that might be, guilt, fear, shame, just allow them to flow. Because when you allow the emotions to flow, then usually you'll just kind of be at a more permanent state of peace. Um, but what I've found is initially, you have to find healthy ways to cope because most of us, before we get on this journey, we have unhealthy ways to cope. We might, for me, it's always been binge eating unhealthy foods, something I'm still working on, or, binge watching YouTube, or, dating apps, or there's all these distractions in the world now. But really for me, it just kind of became a thing where I didn't, I didn't personalize my pain as much. I started to kind of let go of the past story, and I started to kind of have compassion for some of the problems or the emotions that have kind of just been within me. And I didn't really distance myself from them. When, like, early on my healing journey, I would be like, I'd have this story in my mind about like why I feel guilty or why I feel shame. But when I started to forgive and I started to kind of just take it as part of me. Like this guilt isn't separate from me. It is a part of me. And that's okay. It's okay that I felt guilty. And I didn't really feel guilty or shame in some of the past experiences, and I kind of just embodied them. Yeah, I did change. And as far as, outside forces or, people outside of me, kind of seeing me change, what I've just kind of been inherently blessed with, I just don't really care what people think. Um, and I just kind of understood that, you know, you're always going to face initial resistance. You're always going to, when you put out that first YouTube video or when you have that first, sales presentation, or even if you're younger, that first presentation in front of the class, there's always resistance. And I've kind of just learned to like just embrace the resistance. It's never fun. It's not, I mean, it kind of is now from my perspective, but back then it's never, fun. And just understanding that a part of spirituality is a very like masculine, like, I don't feel like doing this, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So when I started healing and I started changing, and I went through a phase where I was vegan, and I went through a phase where um I didn't really, do certain things that I used to do. I was very fortunate in that I put a really good group of people around me, so I didn't really have to deal with a lot of the judgment that people typically have. But it kind of goes back to just, self-respect, self-love, and just doing what's best for you at the end of the day.
Okay, throughout all of this, let's say venturing and entrepreneurship, there is a lot of risk. How would you cope with that?
For sure. So I do think taking calculated risk is very important. We do hear the stories of people going all in, and I don't want to discourage someone for doing that. But understand, if you do that, I think it's just very important when you take risk, understand the risk and understand why you're taking the risk. And for me, what I personally teach on my YouTube channel is you have to build up that risk building muscle. Because if you take a lot of people, because I remember when I was younger and I used to think about this, when it pertained to like starting a business or, doing something or quitting your job, that it was just this, you just go from like an employee to like, I'm just doing it, That's typically not how it works. So like for me, when I realized I wanted to start an online business, it started with me first investing in $100 program on how to learn sales. Then that $100 program went to a $700 program on how to build an online business. Then that $700 program went to a $2,000 business coach. And I built that muscle. And at the time, I was still making money. I was being responsible with my money. I think as an entrepreneur, I mean, if you're going to run a business, Jay-Z said it best. I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman. You need to like start looking at yourself as an actual business before you even have your own business. So you have to have your personal finances in check, but also understand why you're taking the risk and look at it from a very business owner perspective. So it's like when I made this investment in a business coach, um, it was $2,000, but I understood that if I get one client, which I sell high ticket programs, just like a lot of other, spiritual coaches, if I get one client, I make all that money back. So you have to understand, because sometimes people just like take a risk, and they just take a risk because they see all these like YouTube videos of like, take a risk, go for it, you deserve better. But you have to understand why you're taking it. Do not just take a risk just because you need to take a risk. Like when I bought that $700 program, I'm like, this might not make me immediate money, but what this will do is establish, marketing systems like email marketing, content marketing. What this will do is establish myself online. So even if I don't directly make money from investing in this program, this will probably produce clients, public speaking opportunities, real estate opportunities. You got to think a little bit bigger than just the risk in the moment. Um, Now, as far as how to handle it, that's why mindset is so important. You have to have a very even keel mindset. And I personally recommend um, you do push yourself a little bit. There's that fine line between taking a calculated risk and then just it's not being enough of a risk. It must push you a little bit. You must get a little uncomfortable, but you don't want to push yourself too much. Like if you go from I've never invested in a business coach I'm just speaking from personal example because it's easier for me to say. If I just went from like I've never invested in anything, like no program, no anything, like I've invested in multiple courses, $200, $100, $500, 700. If I went from nothing to like $5,000, your psychological nature, it won't be able to handle that. So you have to take it one by one by one, and it takes a mature mindset. It takes a I don't need to get rich right now mindset. Like, what am I building 5 years from now, 10 years from now? It takes that kind of mindset. I find that people that take risk that it doesn't end up working out, they didn't thoroughly, it doesn't even have to be really necessarily calculated. They didn't thoroughly think it out. They didn't think about the ROI on the risk. They ultimately didn't believe in themselves on a core level before they took the risk. And that's why 90% of businesses fail, is because you got to really be organized with your thought, organized with what you're doing. And if you're looking to take that risk, I would just say, just honestly ask yourself, can I mentally handle this? And if you can't, that's okay. Go down a level. So like maybe you're trying to, let's say someone's trying to quit their job, right? Which is a big thing, especially nowadays, with social media. You gotta you're gonna have to there's gonna be a point where when you quit the job and you're running your own business, it's not gonna be comfortable, because I know for me, I'm still trying to do that. And I know when I make that transition, um, there's a lot of uncomfortability, but it's like I know what income I need to get at. For me, when I get to 10K a month, that's when I'm gonna make the transition. But that's just me, whatever is comfortable for you. And I have set metrics, set things I set in place, and it's still a risk at the end of the day, because if I don't get clients, if people start hating me on YouTube, if YouTube shuts me down, you know how cancel culture is nowadays. If I get canceled by like the world, then but I have steps in place where I'm building capital with my day job right now. I have investments, you got to be like strategic when you do this stuff. You can't just, business is very rational. There is an emotional side to it, but it's very like, let's look at the numbers, let's see what we got to do. I would just say, look at your numbers, really be honest with yourself, be honest in how much risk you can take and how much you're willing to take. But also, I would say, if you do take the leap, don't take it too seriously. I remember when I took the biggest risk I took was hiring my $2,000 business coach. I was scared. But when I started looking at my business as more of like a Lego set, not my life depends on this. If I don't do this, my life sucks. I hate my life. That's when I started to grow the most. So that's kind of my advice for that.
It has been more than purposeful, more than great talking to you, Alec, and getting to know all about your amazing journey. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, no problem, Nour. And if you want to check me out, definitely connect with me on LinkedIn, Alec Ashby on there. And then also follow my YouTube channel, Fulfilled Lives on YouTube. You can find it through my LinkedIn, and any business services I offer. But really appreciate the time, Nour, and I hope this was of value to someone.
Thank you.